Welcome to episode 17 of the Fitasylum podcast. Today we're joined by the second strongest man in England, T. Hulme or Thomas Hulme. T, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, glad to be here.
And do you want to tell us what your Instagram is so everyone can check out your 300 kg deadlift and some of your other awesome lifts?
About a year ago. My Instagram's TC_HSPS, and on Facebook it's just my name. Everything goes on there.
We will link it in the podcast notes, but yeah, we're very excited to have Tom on today. He is the strongest person on the podcast, and we're going to see how long he can hold that title for. But yeah, tell us a little bit about becoming a PT. Tell us why you wanted to be a PT. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say PT with Tom. I should say coach.
So I draw the line on PT and coach because I will get somebody very strong, but as soon as they leave that room, I'm not responsible for their decisions. So getting into training like 13, 14, I didn't know a thing, but it had a massive kind of transformative effect on my life, mainly in terms of like body image and confidence, and especially in teenage years, that leads on to a lot. And so I've got Asperger's, that's like a form of ASD, so I hyperfixate on things, and conveniently I hyperfixated on training. So I picked up tons of knowledge, information really quickly, and thought, right, this is my thing, let's make a career out of it. So it went from there.
Awesome. No, that's really good. I know a lot of the stuff in the kind of like mainstream media at the moment is about if you've got like ADHD, autism, Asperger's, is making it your superpower, because a lot of people who are high level actually are on the spectrum somewhere, which is amazing. I know obviously I'm autistic, so I hyper focus on certain things. So it is actually a skill, and I love people seeing it as a skill. I loved how you've just mentioned it straight away there, T. But tell us, starting out as a coach, you were coaching people before you was even a PT, because people would come to you all the time in the gym, weren't they?
So from about 17 onward, I was pretty much coaching in some capacity, not professionally. Obviously, I'm insured, so it's a bad idea. Not something you should do. But the biggest thing looking back is no matter what age you start, you do not start being a good PT or a coach. No matter how educated you are, your first year, you're going to do a lot of stuff, not dangerously wrong, but ineffective, inefficient. You guinea pig, you gain experience. So I knew I enjoyed what I was doing, but doing it on an informal basis with your mates, training with them. In all honesty, when I'm training, I don't want to have to guinea pig three of my mates.
I remember like you told me when you first started out training, you might train for like 6 or 7 hours.
Oh yeah, so when I was like young, I thought that more was better. So I'd go on like all these machines as Total Fitness. I didn't understand why I couldn't go as heavy in the bicep curl as the leg press. I do every machine for a few rounds, I guess. Cardio, sauna, repeat, like maybe 3-4 days straight in a week.
We all used to do that though, didn't we? Probably not to that extent, but I remember going for like, me and Fraser used to go for like 3 hours, 4 hours, and you'd hit every single machine thinking, that's the best way to do it. That's why they're here. And obviously you just don't have a clue of like how to train properly. But when did you actually qualify, and tell us about your £10 million insurance?
Oh, so I did my course while I was 17, qualified just before my 18th. Obviously, I think reps was a thing back then, so...
It was, yeah.
I think it might have been through reps or something else.
You did do it through reps, I remember.
It was like a 10 million coverage claim. It was really cheap as well, for anything for the purpose of sport. So, pretty much covers anything. Oh, why did your client get hit by a truck? Oh, stop running into the road for sporting purposes. Yeah.
It was through Insure for Sport, and basically, Tom, when he was 18, came and worked in the gym I was in, and we looked at his insurance because Tom's obviously into strongman, and we wanted to make sure that the things he was doing, he was insured for, because they can be classed as a little bit more dangerous than your average PT, would you?
Yeah, there's a lot more potential for things to go very wrong, but...
And most public liability insurance is up to 5 million, and legally you have to have public liability up to 5 mil. But thankfully Tom's was up to 10. They must have known who he was and what he was planning on doing in the industry. So 18 is crazy young to be PT'd. Was it difficult to start out as a PT at Total?
PT, coaching wise, wasn't that bad. Felt natural, took it quite quickly. It's more the case for 18. Everyone's got a different background, but I wasn't really in the real world. So when it came to like marketing myself, a lot of self-confidence and all fairness that wasn't there. The business side, I just was completely clueless. And that's honestly what I didn't enjoy at first. I like coaching, I didn't like everything else.
I always tell people and students that T is probably the best coach I've seen in person, especially for his age. And it's mainly the crazy detail. If someone ever said to me they were doing a one-off session with a coach, I'd always send them to Tom. Not necessarily for long-term coaching and programming and kind of that side of things, but more the one-off detail, because the detail you go into is absolutely crazy, isn't it, T? Would you say?
Yeah, 100%. So I've always had like a, especially toward like technical work, I still do in my own sport. Yeah, the attention to detail, I can speak for strongman. I think it'll probably apply to a lot of other sports, but the fine-tuning aspects, even for like general pop clients, it's somewhere I see a lot of people in the industry kind of falling back on.
Definitely.
Like a one-size-fits-all, like strip back you don't lift it.
Yeah.
It's one of them, it's, you go one layer deeper, you find the common factors that make something effective, and straight away, yeah, in 1 hour you can make something work for any individual.
100%. And like one of the things I used to see you do when you were coaching is it was finding the best technique for that specific client. And I always look back at it. I tell students now when they're like, oh, we need to be correcting posture. And I'm like, well, that client's had that posture for 30 years. You, in your half an hour, 1 hour session, 2 or 3 times a week, you're not going to be correcting it to the level you're expecting. You're probably actually going to cause more harm. So I always tell them to try and tailor it to the client as much as possible, whether that be posture, technique, setup of any specific exercise. So when you started coaching, T, obviously the sales side you didn't enjoy as much. And I would suggest that's probably the area most PTs struggle in. And the sad part is the best coaches often might either give up at that point or struggle to get as many clients, and the PTs or coaches who will say are not as good, they're really good at the sales side and they do really well.
I see a lot of that, yeah.
We do see that a lot, but would you say how crazily good were you at PT at 18?
Not particularly,
No. And it was, in terms of, like I said earlier, one-to-one and an individual session for detail and quality of movement, T was unbelievable. But it was probably the other stuff he needed to experience in the first year of how long can you program for a client, the detail you can put in. T was probably doing programs that were more for himself and less for the general pop.
100%.
And they were crazy, like 2-hour sessions sometimes. And they were really good. Like the detail he used to go, like on True Coach, they literally were paragraphs, weren't they?
Paragraphs, half waffle and half actual content. Yeah, I still do that. Like, I think I made a program the other day, this horrible little superset for like work capacity for someone's posterior chain. It just says enjoy at the bottom, little smiley face. Personal touches.
It is the personal touch. And how long you been coaching for now, T?
Now,
5 years?
about 5 and a bit years, yeah.
Yeah, and if you would rate yourself when you first started on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being amazing, 1 being terrible, what would you give yourself when you first started?
Like a 3.5.
I was a 1, I would say. And now, how would you say you are?
Now, right, I'm not going to bring myself up too much. I'm going to say an 8.
I would have said 9 for you, T. So what do you reckon you've still got to improve on then?
It's not a case of having weak areas. So that my client base, my athletes right now, it's all the way from first timers to I've got lads looking at like international other competitions, got a few gunning for like worlds next year, that sort of thing. It's more the case of things can be more efficient, things can be better. Every single, let's say, peak or competition outcome for an athlete, obviously there's a discussion with them, but the discussion I have with myself is, right, I could improve the outcome by changing this or implementing that. And I think going from an 8 to a 9, or let's say 9 to a 9.5, it just comes from finding inefficiencies, errors, kind of watertight in what already works.
Yeah, and I think that's a massive lesson for PTs, is to keep it really simple, your coaching. And if there is something, like it's making small changes. I see coaches sometimes and they'll be programming for a client and they'll go, oh, that's not working, we'll change everything. And sometimes it might just be a small change. Would you agree, T?
100%. Again, if you've got a plan that's set, you should know your plan works. If something isn't right, I mean, again, everyone looks at the program and thinks, oh, the issue's the entire thing, let's scrap it, let's start back up again. First conversation I have with an athlete is, how's your sleep, how's your food, how's your stress? And generally speaking, one of those 3 is probably why the plan isn't working. After that, you delve a little bit deeper, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. I always remember Floody. And he used to get up at like 5 a.m. He was the big CEO of a business and he was so stressed all the time. And then he couldn't work out why, if he was really stressed, his deadlift would go from a 180 to like 100 because he was just, his CNS system, his nervous system was just shocking. But Tom mentioned something very briefly there, and T does this quite a lot, where he just brushes over it because he thinks it's simple for everyone, but it's about your protocols. Make sure you have a program that you know works, and I would always recommend to coaches, for the first year, try and set up all your programs and protocols, and they can constantly be developed. And you are looking to constantly develop these protocols, processes, and that can be something like a simple 4-week program. It can be something where you've got a simple structure on TrueCoach where you're always recording someone's sleep, hydration intake, their stress level. But the point is, take away process. Make sure you've got process and program nailed down. Would you agree, T?
Yeah, 100%. So especially, let's say, as a new coach, new PT, if something works, there's a reason why, just bang it. So I've got this one deadlift protocol. I've been using it for athletes for about 2.5 years now. I used it on myself first. It was sick, to be honest. But from there, but okay, that idea's worked. I've applied it to someone else, changed it, modified it. I've kept the skeleton of this program on TrueCoach, kept going back to it, tweaking it again and again. It's at the point now I'm using it for semi-pro level athletes. Success leaves clues. That's something that my coach says a lot. So if you've had a successful outcome with a client, yes, they're not the same as next person, but there's a reason that thing was great. So keep it, apply it elsewhere. You end up with these templates. And as a coach, as a PT, especially as your business grows, if you've got these kind of go-to templates, then it just takes workload off your back. If you can assign that to someone, tweak it to suit them, job's done. It takes half the time.
As a coach and a PT, a lot of the time you're a problem solver. So a client will come to you and say, this is my problem. You'll go, no worries, I've got the program and protocol to solve that problem. And the other one that T just touched on there is, we both know Bobby. I'm coaching Bobby at the moment still. And I did him a program a few months ago, and he went, Dec, you've made a mistake. You've put the same program on TrueCoach just with higher numbers. I was like, well, did it work last time? Yeah. Well, why would we change it? Too many people want to change for the sake of it, don't they, T?
100%, yeah.
And I always say, if a program's working, let's repeat it until it plateaus or it doesn't have the same kind of effect, which is amazing. But I think some really, really good insights there from T on coaching. And it's took him 5 years to get from a 3 to a 8. Yeah. So stick at it, guys. Constantly try and develop your coaching. And in terms of Tom as a person, as an athlete, what is your USP in terms of coaching clients? Because you talked about having competitive athletes there. Would you say that's your clientele and demographic?
Yes. So my entire demographic is, well, strength athletes, really any level, from complete novice first timer up to my highest performing lad right now. We're looking at international touching worlds, but it's all strength sports and performance, weightlifting, powerlifting, strongman, strongwoman.
So all the strength sports, the important stuff. So I would say as well, guys, take away, make sure you know your target audience, make sure you understand who you want to work with, because to be honest, you're really demotivated if you're working with people that you just don't want to work with. If you're passionate about that area, as Tom's passionate about strength sports, you're going to be more invested in their results. You're going to be able to also impart more wisdom, because Tom will tell you in a second, that's his journey as well. So he's picking experience up. So he's going from that 8, 9 to 9.5, 10, just by doing it himself. You said before you'd done the program yourself and then passed it on to the client. So you've got experience. When the client goes, oh, this session was particularly difficult, you can go, yeah, I found that session difficult. Oh, yeah. Would you say that's a big part of it as well, T?
Massively. So for the most part, if something's worked for you, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm an athlete of a certain level. I'm not going to give my program to someone else because it won't be suitable, then not me. But one of the first programs that my coach gave me, it was a Norwegian block. So it's a method coined by Dimitar Wolf. It's class, unreal. And I've used that framework so much ever since, obviously adjusted it and tweaked it. But weeks 3 and weeks 7 are horrendous. Weeks 4 and weeks 8, you feel like an animal. And I've applied this. It's like an inverse volume thing, and then your accessories fit around that. But every time I've assigned at something similar, I can relate immediately to where they are at each point. Week 1 and week 5, it's always a case of actually go a lot lighter than you expect. You add a certain percentage to load as the volume inverts, and so on. But again, success leaves clues. If it worked for you, if it worked for someone else, figure out, first of all, it's not the program, there's something in the program that worked. There's that second layer under the surface. Same with technique, anything. Look at the common factors, the boxes that get ticked, and kind of focus on those.
Carl, I think that's the name of the podcast, Success Leaves Clues. I love it. And so tell us about your strongman journey then, T.
Strongman. So all the backstory, I'll make it brief. So getting into training, I was young, wanted to put some size on, wanted to look good in my school shirt. It was a little bit too small for me. So yeah, packed a bit of size on. Me and my brother would go to the gym, and I just enjoyed lifting heavier things for the sake of it. So I got a pretty strong, I think I was pulling like 220 at like 15, like 70 key body weight. So I was strong for a kid. I mean, there's a kid at Chaos now.
You were very strong too.
There's some kid at Chaos who's like, I think he's like 15, 16.
That's just a breeding ground of freaks though, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. But I remember like, I was his age, thought I was strong. This kid, he's an animal.
Crazy.
Yeah. But from there, went into a bit of powerlifting, but my technique was horrendous. So my back didn't like it, surprisingly enough. So I went to weightlifting because it didn't hurt. Weightlifted for quite a few years. But
did very well.
Pretty well, but kind of that high intermediate level of weightlifting, it becomes a case of loads of technical work to add a kilogram, and I'm not that patient. So I enjoyed lifting heavy. I'd squat more than I'd snatch half the time.
And
so
he would also
strongman,
max out all the time.
Max something, yeah. Strongman was a fun hybrid. I dabbled in it before, like Chaos Strength Gym. It's in Preston. If you're into strongman, it's
the best.
This side of the Atlantic, there is nowhere better for it, hands down. But been there before quite a bit, and it was a nice kind of combination of lots of technical skill going in to then just force your body to lift an obscene load. So I think at the start of lockdown I decided to kind of commit almost fully, and it took off from there.
And just to emphasise T's love of strongman, we all went to Narberth on a great little holiday to Wales, just in the middle of COVID when we were allowed out. And we were all playing football on the beach. T's running around with rocks, or what were they, rocks? Boulders.
Found some big stones.
Big stones, he was running around with them training. We brought a sandbag on holiday with us because T needed to train.
I don't think I touched the sandbag.
No, I did though. No. But yeah, T loves strongman. And you've competed at the highest level. Recently crowned second strongest man in England in your category, which is unbelievable. You've competed at Worlds.
Not yet, no.
Oh, right. You're going to compete at Worlds?
This year, yes.
Yes, awesome. Tell us about your journey as a strongman in competition. How does it differ?
So, in all honesty, I'm not actually mega competitive. So my first competition was actually England's Strongest Man 2022. My first ever event was going to be an axle press world record attempt, but I took my bicep off twice just out of it. That was my fault. So the whole competitive side, it came about. I hit a lift about 250 grams off the current world record at the time on an axle, and word got around, and my current coach, Tom Hibbert, for education on that note, Tom Hibbert is a genius. Tons of articles on his website, it's all the content's there. I would strongly suggest just reading up. He's a massive educator in the industry, so post-qualification he's got some good resources too. But he reached out to me, offered me a place on his elite performance team, so like a sponsorship program for athletes. And as part of that agreement, he was like, okay, right, we're going to set some targets. First being the actual record that went snap. 2 weeks out, that wasn't fun. But England's 2022 came 6th. And a lot of this was new to me because I like deadlifting, I liked overhead pressing, stuff like endurance events, surprisingly I didn't often touch. But it was good start. For first competition, 6th in England. The English scene, I'm under 80 kilogram strong man, and without trying to take clout from any other nation, most of the best in the world, at least a good half of us, England and the US, where all the best under 80s are. There's this one French lad, Ben Dolan, have you heard of him?
Yeah, I've seen him on Insta.
So he's the same coach as me, which gives me hope, but he's unbelievable. Probably the all-time strength don right now. But from there, went qualified for Brits, it was top 8. Brits went to plan until, a little anecdote here, so event 2 deadlift, it was like 240 reps on a power bar, raw, so raw was like no suit, just straps, belt, your standard deadlift. Plan was 8, did 8, thought this feels good, got to 10. I've got the video here.
I've seen
I look up, looked at my mum, nodded, I was like, yeah, I'm buzzing now, put the bar down, and I look up, and the MC shouting at me, all the lads, so in strongman, we're all mates, it's class, like I'm best mates with these lads who I'm competing against. They're all shouting, yeah, go on, Tom, do another. So I think, oh, right, sweet, let's go, ignore the plan, go again. And I snapped like half my posterior chain on that one rep. So the Brits result was not very high, we'll say. Following that, little off-season, went for a log record in January, but due to like a lot of personal factors and health factors, that just didn't come about. Nowhere close. Then it was England's this year, came, second. Which
is amazing because you've been doing it about a year now, competed,
about a year in actual competition. But yeah, I beat a lot of lads I didn't expect to, in all honesty, which looking at the top 10 in the world, it suddenly puts me in quite good stead for OSG. It's like World's Strongest Man. I think that's like November.
And you're one of the younger ones?
I think I was the youngest there still.
I think you were.
Well, sorry, no, I wasn't the youngest there.
Second.
I was the youngest in the top 10.
Yeah.
There's one lad from our gym who's younger than me. And
wow.
Maybe a few others.
So, and then what are the plans for the future? To win England's Strongest Man, and then where do you want to compete this year? Where do you want to place this year at World's Strongest Man?
So this year at Worlds, the online qualifier. Oh, there's a lot of methods to get to Worlds, bear in mind. I'm going to do the online qualifier because it's just the most convenient for me. The online qualifier, in all fairness, I could have qualified for the last year or two. But so looking at Worlds, again, your top 10 are unbelievable. These guys don't have weak points. And that's how you win competitions. Consistency, if anything. But top half I'll take. I think top 10 is achievable if everything goes to plan.
Nice, good stuff. Top 10, we'll all be rooting for you. And what are you most looking excited for? What are you most excited for 2023 going forward?
Honestly, it's just work-life balance. I've got where I want it to at last, where I can actually enjoy things.
5 years ago, T, would you have said work-life balance?
I mean, 6 months ago when I said work-life
balance. Yes, I was going to say. That wasn't a thing for T. He used to just be like, nah, I need to train more. Nothing else matters other than training.
It's taken me until about 2 weeks ago to realise that things matter outside of lifting weights.
Wow.
Yeah, it took a while to figure that one out.
So you're excited for work-life balance?
Yes.
That shocked me. And what would the one tip you'd currently give people in education?
In education? Right, one tip. I'm just going to say, I'm going to repeat myself and say just success leaves clues. Look at what you want to do. Again, it might be a niche, it might not be, but find the athletes or let's say the PTs or coaches who are most successful in that sphere. So I'll use strongman for an easy example. I look up to Tom Hulme and Shane's man, MST Systems.
Nice.
They're two opposite sides, in my opinion, of the same coin. So I look at both their methods, great methods, but I look at the common factors again. Which boxes do they both tick incredibly well that creates good results? The education side of this industry is key in the sense of programming, anatomy, physiology, all this sort of stuff. But what sets you apart from everyone else, the same block of knowledge, is the research you do. Research can literally be, so let's say, like Shane, if I was to, let's say, drop a message or meet him at a comp, I could just ask him a few questions. Everyone's friendly like that. And knowledge I've used 3 weeks ago for one of my athletes that's completely changed his training experience was a one-off conversation with Shane at, it was like England's last year or something. One-off
nice.
comment. Yeah.
And that's really important. So maybe go out there and speak to fellow people in the industry you aspire to. I'd say, T, you're kind of like a hybrid between Tom and Shane, wouldn't you? Are you trying to be?
Again, I figure out what they both do very well and try and apply both.
Yeah, because you lean more on the MST side of stuff personally, but I know behind the scenes you're more of a Tom.
So MST, I think he's the more kind of like animal, kind of savage, brutal, top set side of the coin. Tom,
analytical and data driven.
On the surface, yes. I think deep down he's still got that.
Still an animal.
Still an animal, but yeah, he's a lot more. Tom will tell me when to go light, and Shane, never been coached by Shane, but from my experience, he'll encourage people to attack things a bit harder. Yeah. And there's a nice middle ground, I think, somewhere.
I think you need to be told to go lighter sometimes, T.
Definitely.
What is one tip you would give fellow professionals? This could be fellow coaches, this could be people in any industry, T.
Right, this is going to sound like a weird one, but just in my own opinion, I think so time is money, but your time actually has value. Don't burn the candle at both ends. And this, just my own experience, this might actually mean limiting your available hours, depending on the time you're at. Because taking care of yourself in terms of, again, like for me, actually spending time with people that you care about a lot more than you maybe already do. It's easy to go too deep into your profession. But manage your workload, manage your time, and you'll probably get much better results out of yourself and your client base.
Yeah, if you look after yourself, you're going to give a better service and you're going to be able to function better as a human.
You'll enjoy it more at the end of the day, yeah.
But yeah, just on a personal note, a big thanks to T for joining us. And when he came to my gym 5 years ago, he really helped elevate the quality of coaching. I was definitely, personally, for my coaching, I was stagnating. I'd probably gone backwards. I kind of like no one pushing me to be better. And we brought a group of PTs in, or coaches, who were much better, and everyone kind of helped elevate the coaching level. And T was probably at the forefront of that. So yeah, big thanks to T for that as well, because it made my coaching a lot better. Made me stop being lazy, really. And so again, just T, give us a shout out where people can find you on socials.
So socials, Instagram, TC_HSPS for everything professional. Facebook, if you want to see steak, is just my name.
You are good at cooking,
I think.
And we'll link all his, we'll link where he currently works, we'll link his coach, because obviously that's a great resource for you guys, and we'll also link Tom's socials. But T, episode 17, huge success. Thank you so much for joining us, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And good luck at Worlds. We will definitely keep an eye on it.
Thank you.